you so much for joining us. My name is Seth Borco. I'm the head of Skiff Research, and I'm really delighted to be hosting this amazing panel that we're going to have coming up on hotel productivity, how to unlock productivity using tech. Now, I've got a wonderful panel of really smart speakers who are going to join me on stage. So, please welcome to the stage Bryson Kaylor, as in Taylor, Kaylor, the CEO of Readiness. Give it up for Bryson. Hey.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Next up, we've got Carlo Del Mistro, Chief Digital Officer for Ennismore. And we've got this upcoming unknown, Matt Welle, CEO of Mews. It's a tech company, I think. And finally, last but certainly not least, Valerie Parks, Senior Director of Business Relationship Management at Choice Hotels. Awesome. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. We are going to have an awesome session talking all about technology, hospitality, productivity. Just a reminder for the audience, we will be taking Q&A, right? We can use Slido. This is your chance to ask some really smart people your top questions about technology, productivity. So put those questions in. We'll get to them at the end of the session, okay? All right, I want to start with just brief intros, give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. This session is about productivity, so let's be efficient with our intros, and let's get into the meat of the conversation, but let's still talk about, introduce the audience to who you are. Why don't we start over here? Valerie, why don't you start?
So I've been in technology, hospitality technology for more years than I care to say, but I've actually switched to a new role where now I work with the business and trying to help them figure out where they want to go, looking at new trends coming in and helping them get those ideas through our IT department.
Yeah. Matt?
Yep, I can give an intro if people don't know.
Okay.
So I've been in hospitality since I was 16. I'm 43 now, so I've been around a while, but I really started in hotels. And then as we leaned into Mews, we're really trying to, the pains that I felt of lack of productivity in hotels because of the systems, we're trying to now solve through technology and hopefully then leading to better hospitality.
It's a good segue. We're going to talk a lot about that. That's a good one, Matt. Carlo, tell us a bit about yourself and Ennismore.
Absolutely. I've been with Ennismore now 6 years. Ennismore is a joint venture with Accor, so we're part of the Accor group. We are not independent, but we like to say we are autonomous. So we can do things a bit differently, and I think we're going to discuss it a bit later.
I like that. Not independent, but autonomous. And Bryson.
Great. I started my journey in hospitality, I guess, 25 years ago at IHG, and I am a hotel data geek. At Revinate, we spend all of our time focusing on how we use data to help make better decisions across hotels.
Yeah, I love it. I think there's a lot of people here who consider themselves hotel data tech geeks. I love geeking out about really important topics.
We're proud of our geekhood.
Yes, that's right. Hey, own it. That's right. So, look, I just want to start. This is going to be a simple question. I'm going to throw it to all of you. We can see who wants to take it first. Maybe it'll be you, Matt. But I want to talk about productivity. I want to just ask, how have things changed? We've all been in hospitality for a long time. What is, over the last few years, what's the biggest shift that you're seeing in hotel productivity? I'm going to start with you, Matt, and then I'm going to open this to the panel.
The thing I've seen is that a lot of hoteliers have bought the systems, but they haven't leveraged them in the right way. So they buy the fancy car, but they drive it like it's a Volvo or one. I don't know. I'm not good with car analogies. I'm not great with cars, but I don't think Volvo is a Ferrari. And that's when you unlock the productivity. But it means changing the way you operate. So don't buy the Ferrari and then drive it like a Volvo. And that's ultimately underlying it. Like you can do so much, but you need to create that culture of experimentation and just saying, this thing that we're doing by hand manually, it really frustrates me. Surely there must be a way to solve this. And asking that out loud and then triggering with the team to rethink that will lead to real innovations.
Yeah. I like that idea of not just buying the tech, but driving it and driving it the way it's meant to be driven. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Valerie, what do you think the big shifts are in productivity?
I think it's really how we're starting to leverage our data. We've had, obviously in hospitality, we've had data for so long. But I think now you're seeing people starting to unlock how we utilize it better. I was at a conversation yesterday where somebody's looking at all their data and calling the guests and understanding how they're booking. I think we can do so much with it to unlock that productivity.
Yeah. Bryson?
I mean, it's all about outcomes. Building a data warehouse isn't an outcome, right? Driving, direct bookings, shifting channels, from higher cost to lower cost. Like those are outcomes. And so I think the big shifts happening in productivity are increased focus in outcomes. And I think that means you got to learn how to drive the Ferrari.
Yeah.
Parking is the problem for me.
Parallel parking?
Yeah.
They don't have the
I'm
auto
not great.
park. They don't have the auto park.
It's definitely something that, is the focus the last couple of years, inflation and the rest. It's all about how do we get more productive. And it's, especially for us, it's not only about controlling cost, but it's also improving the service and making sure that we continue delivering exceptional experiences to our guests. So I think very often when you talk about productivity, you start talking about cost cutting or saving. I think it's interesting also looking at how do we do more in terms of just better serving the guests.
Yeah, there's productivity, there's efficiency, there's how you do your operations better, but there's also how do you generate more revenue, how do you be better sales and hosts, and therefore, create profit. So I like that as well. I've been here talking to many of you. We've had some dinners, met with you guys. In all these talks, there's these two letters that keep coming up, right? It's AI, right? We keep hearing about that. If we're going to talk about tech, we're going to talk about productivity. I don't know. Is AI this is it the miracle panacea, or are we going to just have amazing productivity because of AI? What do you mean, Matt? What do you think?
I genuinely think it is a miracle how I use it. I don't even Google anything anymore. I literally have AI installed on my phone. I press a button and it opens up and I ask the question. So I use it, but you have to lean into it. In hotels, I think it can lead to a miracle, but it does require hoteliers to really lean into it. So what we did is we said, well, we have data. We've collected all this data, but also our integration partners collect this data, and we're asking them, just send it to the PMS, we will store it, and then we're going to use that AI to read all of it for you. The moment the guest steps up to the reception desk and saying, Mr. Jones, here's all we know about you in a tweet size, because I'm not going to read a book on this customer and their previous experiences and what they previously purchased and if they had an upsell before. So we give it to them in a tweet size, but the information is just the information, unless you sit down with your team and say, what are we going to do? Because now we've got these tooltips and we've got these AI insights that we're getting from historic inputs. What are we doing differently? And that is the discussion that I don't think a lot of hoteliers are having. They're just operating as is, we deployed it. And we deploy things silently. It just appears in the system. And this was one of those things that it just appeared. But it does require people to stop and say, right, what does this actually mean? Is it good? Do we trust it? And if we do trust it, are we going to do something with it?
What are an open question, but what are the AI use cases you're most excited about? Where do you really see the real potential?
I think it varies across the stack. We see it a lot on the data side. We just published our recent benchmark report. We do that every year, and it's interesting to see kind of a continued increase in the dirtiness of data, right? We're not making it better, and because we see that as we go into new customers and the data that we're inheriting from their systems, the amount of cleansing that has to occur. So I think data cleansing, really big use case, helping augment the capabilities of the marketing team, the front desk team. To us, it's all about augmentation, whether you're a call center agent using our voice systems or you're on the marketing side, back of house, working on campaigns. We see AI being an augmentation tool across the stack.
Can I just pause? Can I ask for some audience participation? Can I ask you a question? You're a bunch of really, really smart hoteliers. Can you raise your hand if you're using AI on the ground implemented today? Wow. That's a lot of people. That's good. That's good. Obviously they're using Mews. It's AI implemented.
I think we're in the early days.
We're in the early days, right?
Early days. Even for folks using it, what we have today and what we'll have a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now is we're just starting this journey.
Yeah.
And we've deployed AI internally at Mews. So we deployed a tool called Glean, which is incredible, and it connects to all of our internal platforms. And after a month, we still see 20% haven't even logged into it. And I'm like, why not? And they're like, we need training. I was like, no, you just ask your question that you don't understand to AI, and it will be the best trainer to you than any personal trainer will be. And it's this, you just got to do it. You just got to be comfortable with it, because if you're not doing it, we're going to find someone who's more comfortable with it, who can help elevate our experience.
That's an interesting bit of maybe even a bit of an implied threat at the end of that statement. If you're not doing it, we're going to find someone who is. I mean, is it that mission critical that people really need to be? Yeah.
Like so it's like asking questions that can be answered with AI. So we use Slack to communicate across 1,300 employees. So if you ask a question in Slack to a channel with 500 people, 500 people are going to have to read that message versus asking AI, and it gives a really good answer. You've just like liberated people from reading one less message, and it has such a compound impact if all these thousands of people are asking questions, and in your hotel as well, if you can very quickly so I was speaking to Luca from Flexkeeping yesterday, who's here, and he has AI built in his housekeeping app, and it's like, because these people are on their phones, so they just need to talk to it. They don't want to open an app, and so he needs to press a button saying, room 101 needs a towel, and then that uploads it, and it was so beautifully done in the way that a housekeeper's on the floor just with their phone, they press a button, they start talking, and it's done. And I think that is really what the innovation should bring.
And Valerie and I were talking. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think I would disagree a little bit on the training part of it, because I think it is it's a new technology and people don't necessarily understand how to engage with it. I was telling the story earlier. My mom somehow turned on the closed caption. She wanted to get it off. Okay. I've been in technology forever. And she's like, and I'm like, I was explaining to how to walk through how to turn it off. And my mom's like, and my daughter's like, just Mom, give me the remote. And she's like, she talked to the remote and it turned it off. I just didn't think about it. And so I think people just don't think how to use it. So that's why I think it is important to do the training as you're rolling this technology out. So we had the same thing. We rolled it out. Nobody was using it. We did some trainings, and then we're automatically seeing the engagement raise dramatically.
But it's maybe not. I mean, let's talk about this, but it's maybe not training in the traditional sense of first you do this, then you do this. It's maybe more lead by example. Yeah,
yes.
lead by example.
Here's some things you can do with it. Did you know you could do this? You could,
And I mean, let's just stay with you, Valerie, because you work for Choice. That's a big hotel brand. It's one thing for a nimble tech company to roll out AI. It's another thing for 8,000 hotels across the globe to roll out AI, or even any really technological tool. So talk to us a little bit about that, how you approach that challenge at scale.
So I think we're looking at it, obviously there's security concerns, there's you have all this data and how do you be safe about it. So we've done a lot of putting that infrastructure together, making sure we've got legal involved, and making sure we've got thinking about it from the standpoint of what are the right things to do. I think Richard talked about this earlier about making sure you're looking at outcomes. Yes, Gen AI is super cool and everybody wants to do it and everybody wants to spend money on it, but are you just throwing that money away? And so we're really looking at it from the standpoint of what makes the most sense to do when. We're probably looking more internally how we're leveraging it. We've rolled out a lot of different things. I actually just did a workshop on a client development tool. I haven't developed anything in probably 15 years. I sat there within a half an hour. I had a working app. And for me and for my team, I see how we're going to leverage this, working with our business partners of rolling through how they want to do something. They're like, I have this challenge and I have this thought in my head. And a lot of times as development teams, you get the idea and then you deliver the product and they're like, well, that's not what I wanted. And you've spent all this time and now you can't do that anymore because you can't take 6 months to deliver something and then have it not be right. So to be able to have those interactions and develop something that quickly and then take that to tech and be like, this is really what we want to do, is going to be amazing.
Yeah. Carlo, I want to bring you into the conversation. You are, in your own words, autonomous to the larger Accor organization, and it's more is like lifestyle, more luxury boutique properties within Accor. So you're autonomous, so you can kind of you can move fast and break things. Is that correct or no?
Hopefully we don't break anything.
Okay, don't break anything.
Just move fast.
Just move fast.
Yeah, it's a very interesting setup because talking with a lot of hospitality companies and operators, there is a lot of experimentation around AI right now. However, there's very few companies that really try to deploy something customer-facing at scale. I see in London there is the Gordon Ramsay group is now using AI to take in phone bookings. and apparently that's working very well. It's around the group. And so you can actually see that even like high-end hospitality can deploy technology. Within travel, there's clearly like chatbots to interface with customers. What we're doing internally at Ennismore, as I was saying, we can move a bit faster than what the whole group can move. And what we're doing is we are experimenting with both internal tools, and I think we have quite a bit similar to what some of the other speakers in the previous panel were saying, internal policy bots, ways to do, for our own employees, faster training, answering questions. But then consumer-facing, that's where we allow some of our brands, for example, 25 hours to experiment with consumer-facing chatbots, already like to try to interface all the way to almost to the point to show like the booking panel and the payment screen. We haven't done the whole journey to the end, but it's the next step that we want to try to do. And so the continued experimentation on different brands, different experiences, so if something breaks, it doesn't impact the whole group and it's quicker to roll back.
Yep.
Can I ask about, just following up on that, you mentioned chatbots, a couple of you mentioned chatbots. Are we sick of chatbots yet, or are we?
I think it's a good question. I don't think a user necessarily wants to use a chatbot. I think especially for lifestyle, higher end, I think it's the human contact is still important. However, there is also still a good percentage of our guests that just wants to get the booking done as quickly as possible. Yeah. They have questions about the stay, especially we see, it really depends on the markets. In, let's say, in North America and Europe, there's not a lot of need for human interaction. We see, however, in our Middle Eastern and Asian properties, there is still 10–15% of our bookings come via the phone, comes via emails. It is like an area that we can simplify, because just thinking about languages, just think about 24/7 coverage is a very expensive way to cover these needs. And I think like automation, AI, agentic AI can really help with that.
I think where it'll go is a more seamless integration between humans and machines. And I think those that get it right, we won't really notice the difference in the handoff between it. Because there are times where you want to escape out and talk to a human, and there are times where you want to self-service, and those times will vary. And we have to meet the guests where they are with the technology they're comfortable with what they're using. We're not going to train them to, do it our way. So we have to blend this in a very seamless way.
So let me pick up on a couple of things, because you said training. I think that's an important point, and also guests and the front desk. I'm interested in the front lines, and this is AI, but it's also everything. It's CRM, it's PMS, it's all of the tools that we use. How do you actually get the front line to buy in and to operationalize this stuff? I think that's an interesting question to me. If it's a software, you can code up new software, with a tool in 20 minutes. Once you've got a floor plan of a hotel, it's baked, it's done. So how do we think about taking tech and productivity tools and fitting it into the staff and the hotels that we actually run?
I love, I don't know if you've read Unreasonable Hospitality, which is a very different space, but he finds these people that are passionate about something, and he makes them a champion. He gives them a title, and he says, you're now champion of AI. And people that are passionate about something, and they're given a title and basically a remit to go and change something, will change things, but you've got to enable them. And some of the hotels, sometimes we deploy in hotels, and we're like, well, what's the GM who's the most forward-thinking one? Can we deploy that hotel first? Because often you get given a hotel, and I said, is that the most innovative hotelier? Because the first GM, with the first deployment, leans into the innovation, who then tells a story to the rest, who gets everyone excited. And I think it's this culture building and finding the people who are passionate, and then enabling them to just run with it.
I also think I think the industry is kind of facing, and we talked about, uncertainty earlier, but I think there's a structural shift that is occurring, that, we live in an exciting time to adopt these technologies, right? The cost of labor is not going back, and it's not going to return to the mean. The industry's always faced headwinds in the past, whether it was a terrorist activity or a SARS breakout or bird flu or a financial crisis, but things would always return to the mean, return to the mean, return to the mean. I'm not sure that labor cost of energy, maintenance is returning to the mean anytime soon. And so, that means that how we engage with the staff we do have, they're going to be stressed. We're not going to have enough. Turnover might be higher. All of these things compounding. So if the tools are there and they're made easy to use, I think adoption will become easier, almost just because of the scarcity of talent and available workers to do these various tasks, whether you're front of house or back of house.
The talent's an interesting conversation. I might go Valerie and Carlo as the representative hoteliers here. How are you using tools to kind of train and upskill your staff? I mean, what is the role there?
So one interesting thing on AI, compared to previous wave of technology, the barrier to entry is extremely low for users. Whereas before, anytime a new technology comes out, there is usually like more things that you need to learn. Whereas with AI, it's almost like making it simpler, as Valerie was saying, is that so that it's actually, once you go over the step of actually talking or typing into an AI, then it becomes quite easy to interact and become more and more. What is key, and in terms of upskilling, is about giving them concrete examples on how to use it, because what we see is that when we provide, we have our internal private version of the major LLM. When we provide it to our teams, they usually play around for a day or two, ask a couple of funny questions, and very often that's the end of it. So maybe they log in, but they don't actually use it for work. What we find useful is like case studies, like show them, how do your colleagues make the process faster? How do you respond to guests in terms of like writing emails, marketing briefs, etc. So this is the way to upskill it. We think it's much more about providing example on how to interact rather than strict guidelines on click here, do that, because it's really like the power of this technology is like allowing people to use it the best way they can find to become more productive, more effective.
Yeah.
Valerie? I mean, obviously, we're coming at it from a different standpoint. We have to, when we roll something out, we have to roll it out to 8,000, 8,500 properties. So I think,
Piece of cake, right? Easy.
Back to the conversation we're having, it's like, yes, you need the technology to be seamless and to be easy to use, but you also have to make sure that that training piece is important, because to the point, like, staffing is going to be an issue, and I think turnover is going to continue to be high. So you can't sit there and do the normal training that you used to do. So you've got to think about how we're leveraging the technology today, even in the training aspect. And I think there's a lot of stuff happening there with, WalkMe and things like that make that a lot easier. So we need to make the training just as easy as we're making the technology.
And in a just-in-time method,
Yes,
but
yeah.
not
Like,
in
they're
a
not gonna
classroom.
go look at a book.
Yeah, or e-learning. Everyone hates e-learning. Nobody wants to do e-learning.
Yeah.
And it's like sitting for an entire day behind a screen, getting taught something. And we still do this at Mews, but we're debating, okay, how do we shift to that? Whereas in the moment you've got a problem, great, here's a video, 2 minutes, and it will teach you what you can do.
And it's right in the application. They're like, I just know how to, and you click it, and you're like, tell me how to, and it's like, and it shows you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you all think is we're talking about all this cool tools and tech and rolling stuff out and moving fast. What do you think is the average kind of frontline worker's reaction to this? Are they excited about it? Or are they scared of it? Are they skeptical? What do you think, Matt?
I think that there's excitement, but there's we have to allow them to use it and to get creative, because SOPs, this thing where I worked at a big chain and I grew up in that, and I was told acknowledge with your eyes and then use the guest name 3 times and mention 2 facilities. That isn't a great experience, and that was the baseline of how I was taught to be a hotelier. And here we're saying, well, actually we're taking care of the check-in for most part. If we can remove 90% of the work there, you now got time. What are you going to do? And like really challenge the team members. And I think they just have to be challenged to just be allowed to make a bet, do a thing that maybe costs a little bit, but it doesn't really hit the bottom line hard. But I think it's those things that our team members will enjoy their job way more than asking about your passport, about your credit card. And like, if you suddenly get a minute back per conversation, how do you leverage that AI? How do you have a real conversation based on it?
So, I think the excitement is there. I think there is some fear.
Yeah.
Will my job go away? What's happening? And that's going to vary. I don't think mobile check-in has displaced a lot of front desk workers. But if you're in the call center, or if you're taking voice reservations, you might have more fear that AI is going to be more disruptive there.
Yeah.
So I think we have to really make sure that we're talking and communicating about the augmentation. We're building superhumans. We're giving people superpowers. The technology is enabling them to be better at what they do. And I think we've got to keep talking like that, reminding people that this isn't something to be scared of. This is something to embrace. And we've just got to do it in the right way.
And I fully agree with the augmentation is the key, because it's about providing better information at the right time to the frontline staff to do their job better. And I think that's where the penny drops and they realize that actually it's not about my job security or my job becomes more boring. It's actually I can do my job better, have better customer satisfaction, be more successful thanks to this new technology.
Exactly.
So I'm hearing, we've had this really cool conversation. We're talking about AI, we're talking about productivity tools, we're talking about, I love, like, kind of what we're saying is the essence of a lot of productivity is taking that manual task away from people, augmenting, enhancing our people, and giving them the ability to have agency rather than need to rely on these SOPs. That's really cool. That's the future we're going to. Let me be a bit of a skeptic, bring it back down to earth a little bit and say, garbage in, garbage out. You gotta have data, you gotta have a real solid tech stack before you can even dream of doing any of this AI stuff. So let's talk about that for a little bit. I'm gonna go to you on this one, Bryson. I mean, you have a lot of thoughts about hotels being data ready. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, in my opinion, I think most hotels are probably not data ready for AI. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, number one, your journey with AI has to start with getting your data organized.
Yeah.
Right? Because if your data is spread out over 15 systems, it is much harder to train and it's much harder to use in real time. And so I think the two most important decisions that you need to make are number one, your PMS, and number two, your CRM marketing, direct booking play. Because those two working very seamlessly together enables you to really bring all of that data together, create those rich guest profiles, understand the real-time nature of what's happening at your property, with your employees, and with your guests. And if you have your data story right, how AI evolves and what tools you choose to turn on or turn off or try with, all of that relies on your data strategy first, being well built, well understood, and evolving over time. So those that have made early investments in getting their data, built out properly, I think will have a far easier time experimenting as AI evolution continues.
Yeah, and Matt, I want to talk to you about hotel technology, something you know a thing or two about.
I like it.
Some people are skeptics of it. The hotels don't always come to mind as cutting edge, leading players in technology. There's a lot of legacy tech, a lot of tech debt. It can be really hard sometimes who actually makes the decision on a tech rollout. I mean, talk to me a little bit about what hoteliers need to be doing to have you've got the data strategy, then you've got the tech stack. Talk to me about that a little bit and some of the challenges that the industry faces.
I think it's letting go of preconceived ideas of what technology should be, because it has dramatically shifted. I've come up with an industry that was running on DOS, and I'm not that old. But until 2012, I was still working in DOS, and suddenly we're in the cloud. And when we migrate to a new hotel, we map out the whole because we integrate with everything you can imagine in a hotel, from Revenate to housekeeping apps to accounting apps. And a lot of hotels are like, well, we want to keep everything the same. We're just going to replace the heart of it. I'm like, we can do that, but you're not going to have a great experience. And we try and challenge saying, well, these pieces are not great integrations. Maybe this connection is more powerful. Maybe on this side, for your hotel, this is a better integration. And it's really challenging saying, if you just remove one piece, it might not lead to the outcome. And maybe you need to be comfortable with us disrupting more of it than just the centerpiece. We did a deployment at a hotel a year ago, and the pilot didn't go well because I had sold it. And I hadn't got the board in, and CEO to CEO, and he rammed out the PMS system. And then he had kept everything else the same in the hotel, and the team hated it because they weren't told that this is the system. So bringing the team along, getting them excited about it, making sure that all the systems seamlessly integrate. And we've come back, we've rewired it, and now we've done the rollout for the whole chain. But it's acknowledging when we mess up in that. It's just really not engaging the whole team and figuring out what their problems are on the floor that they're trying to solve for, and then going to technology. So often they go straight to technology, and instead saying, let's not talk about tech. What are your biggest problems right now in the operation?
I like that idea too. I've talked to other tech companies, and not in travel, who are like, well, the first thing we do before anything is we map out every single thing you're trying to, outcome-based, right? That's what we're talking about, map out the outcomes first. I mean, why do you think the hotel sector sort of thinks in that way? Is there a way to change that mindset, or is that, like, tell me, I want to push you a little more on that. Like, why is that the gut reaction of so many?
It comes from the top. And if the GM isn't asking the right questions, no one else below the GM will ask those questions. At that conversation about the hotel where we misdeployed, I said at some point, what are your business goals? Like, what are you looking to achieve? And this person said, I'm looking to drive ancillary revenue. I was like, great, that's something I can work with. How much? Tell me the number. And then I'll break it down per month. I'm like, that's a spicy number. Right, how are we going to do that? And then you start breaking it down, but it's really going to what are the business goals of the person that you're sitting with, and then making it digestible into a monthly format, and then thinking, is this possible? Yes, but you need to change dramatically, or it's a minor shift. And I think that conversation makes it much more interesting.
I'm going to bring in Valerie and Carlo here a little bit on this conversation, and I'm going to throw something out there, and you tell me why I'm wrong, but is maybe some of the tension also between franchise, owned, managed, there's all these different layers of responsibility. The franchise wants to do one thing, the owner wants to do a different thing, the GM management company wants to do a different thing. And Valerie, like, it's kind of like herding cats, right? Like, get everyone to do the same thing. Like, is that change? Is that right? Tell me where I'm wrong, and is that mindset changing if it is?
I think, especially as a franchisor, we have to, much like we were saying earlier, where we want the guests to be able to choose when they want technology and when they don't want technology. I think as a franchisor, that's our job, we want to dictate the things that we need to dictate that we know are going to work, especially around pulling in that data so that we have all of that data together and we can leverage it and use it on their behalf to help them go further. But we also have to enable those where they're like, I want to do this and I don't want to do this, and what makes sense for them to have the unique nuances and the technology that they want to have. And so as a franchisor, we need to be able to enable those and be able to let them switch in and out where it makes the most sense.
Sometimes you want to push a little harder, though.
Sometimes you do. There's certain areas where you do.
What do you think about this, Carl? You have a lot less properties, an order of magnitude less. What do you think about the same problem?
Oh, it's still the same problem, because especially for technology choices, very often we go hand in hand with the core, because clearly there is bigger purchasing power. There is their technology team is just like much bigger than ours. What is interesting is that there is opportunity still to deviate around it, similar to what you were saying about finding the right GM that is a bit more experimental. We can find some properties that, because of historical reasons, they're maybe a bit on the side of the technology stack, and we can go faster with those properties, and so we can also experiment a bit with the way we actually, the future tech stack, and see how it works in some real life properties.
And what do we think about, like, the guest experience in all of this? You talked about meeting the guest where they are for technologies. We're building brands in this, and this is a space with a lot of great, really enduring brands. Like, how does tech and productivity match with the certain guest experience? Like, I imagine the tech at Ennismore is maybe not the same experience as a Choice, or even across multiple portfolios within the Choice property. Like, what do we think? Like,
I think number one is I think consumer habits are very sticky. Before users start like changing the way they book an hotel, the way they interface with technology will take time. We have seen it in previous waves of technologies. I mentioned to you guys 10 years ago when, or thereabout, when Alexa started like coming out. I remember my boss telling me, Carlo, we need to make sure we're top 2 or 3 in all the Alexa searches when somebody uses Alexa to book their hotel. I don't know if anybody ever booked an hotel with Alexa.
Yeah, are you getting a lot of Alexa fucking?
I think with AI it's going to be different, and it's definitely going to happen. But I think like the speed that the technology is going to, take, get into the consumer's hands in reality is going to take much more time than we expect it to take. So there is still a bit of a first mover disadvantage here, that if you deploy a tech stack in a certain way and then the technology moves the other way, you're a bit at the disadvantage. And that's why I think it's very interesting now to see the companies that are really like doing big bets into like really consumer-facing AI tech and see what is.
I think it's really raising the bar on guest expectations, right? I mean, we're surrounded by hyper-personalization in our lives. right? The apps on our phone, all of these, all the personalization, AI continuing to get smarter and personalizing everything about my day. You know, and I think the guests walking into a hotel are expecting a better personalization. And you know, I think in many cases, if we're still struggling to even welcome you back on your 20th time in that property, and we're saying, is this your first time with us? Can we tell you about the hotel? Then we've got a long way to go to make sure that the data is coming all the way through and being operationalized on the front line. And I think the guest expectation is exceeding the pace of our ability to operationalize it and keep up. It's hard.
Yeah.
One of the challenges I see with the traditional brands is, you know, these brands represent several brands underneath it, but they're told what the systems are that they're allowed to use. They're told you can only use these 2 PMSs, you're only allowed to use this CRM, but the brands are distinctly different, or they're supposed to be distinctly different, right? A budget hotel is not a luxury hotel. The tech stack for a budget hotel should be different. And I feel that the lack of freedom, and we've done that because we wanted data purity across the chain in the CRS, but it's holding the big brands back. And I see the independent hotels really thrive because they're like, for my hotel, what I need in my tech stack is these 5 things, and I don't want to be told what to do. And I do sometimes feel that the brands and the rigid structures of tech organizations are going to hold them back eventually. And I'm hoping it's going to open up because a different brand does need a different tech stack. But it's probably quite a...
So you need autonomy, is what you're saying.
I was going to jump in here because I think, and that's kind of the point I was making earlier, I think that we are looking at how we can, and obviously that's part of our partnership with you guys, it's like we're looking at, it doesn't make, there's not one PMS in all situations, especially when you're going up and down the scale, and so what makes sense to use when and where, and I think that's what we really need to figure out.
I mean, does more flexible, quicker, speedier technology give independents a structural edge over brands?
Not necessarily. You know, people deploy bad tech still, right? It's still a human decision, and they might still buy the tech that's not right for that hotel. But the smart ones, they can really stand out. And I think a smart independent hotel that leverages technology in the right way can drive direct bookings, can drive real efficiencies. But it is still a very difficult decision. Like looking at our marketplace, we've got 1,100 marketplace partners. Like, how do you go through that? And it's a really difficult decision, but it is definitely possible to have a thriving independent hotel.
But it is a great time. I go back 25 years, and I think about my time at IHG. There were very few good technology choices in the ecosystem that could scale to 5,000 properties in 100 countries. So what did we do? We built most of it ourselves. But the ongoing investment to maintain technology and that is quite difficult on a corporate capital structure. Luckily, if you fast forward to today, there are really great at-scale SaaS technology plays that, you know, even the big brands can choose from if they had choice, that give power to the independent, but also get, you know, constantly reinvesting, constantly staying current. There's so much better technology options today. And I think Matt's point on like making sure that people have the freedom within a framework to make wise decisions is really important.
So we're getting some audience questions, and go ahead, scan the QR code, ask your questions. You can upvote, downvote some of the questions. Let's talk about let's just start with this first one. LLMs and AI agents shaping discovery and booking journey. How should hotels adapt their distribution strategy? So this comes back to this conversation we were just having about guests, guest expectations, how you communicate with your guests, and also how they communicate with you. I think, Bryson, you're maybe well suited for this one.
Yeah, look, I mean, we spend a lot of time in the industry optimizing our websites for search engine optimization. We now need to make sure we've got the energy to optimize for generative responses. That's a different type of optimization that you have to go through. So that when you ask Alexa or Perplexity or ChatGPT, where should I stay with my family in Amsterdam for King's Day? It should be smart enough to say, you probably shouldn't come to Amsterdam on King's Day because it'll be quite crowded. Or maybe it'll say it's a great time for you to bring your family. But how do you make sure that you are staying current? We spend a lot of time from a marketing perspective ensuring that you can show up and optimize those results to benefit your hotel, your brand, your property for that search. Again, that'll be continuously more hyper-personalized as we go. And that mindset shift of like, stop worrying about search engine optimization and worry now more about generative optimization is going to be a mindset shift. And it's a technology shift as well.
I think part of it too, and I'm going to phrase this as a question, but like it's also if you search where to stay in Amsterdam for King's Day, and it gives you, or what to do in Amsterdam during King's Day, and it gives you the answers. When you check into the hotel, they don't necessarily productivity. They don't necessarily need to tell you that all over again. You can find that on the first page of Google.
And that's exactly the area that we are also experimenting. More than the actual booking, is about the inspiration and the advisory, because clearly there is, the travel agent experience is something that just like a certain end of the market usually can have. But like AI is where you can actually start having your personal travel agent. And I think the brands that are really able to harness this power, becoming like advising you on when to go to Amsterdam with the family. Is a King's Day the right time to go to Amsterdam? I think those are the brands that are really going to have like a step forward compared to the others.
Like the booking journey has changed, right? So you would go to the OTA, booking.com, and saying, I'm looking in Amsterdam, and then you get 1,000 hotels, and you have filters, and you start filtering. But that is not how I book my hotels. I ask a very distinct question. I'm looking for a hotel by the seaside that allows for dogs, that is a luxury hotel, preferably independent. What options do you have in the north of the Netherlands? Very distinct, and it's going to give me 5 options, and I might just book one of those without going and looking at every single hotel. And it's doing that based on whatever information is available online. What are the questions or what are the things that people are talking about? So if a lot of your TripAdvisor reviews talk about how friendly they were for dogs, like the facilities were incredible, these large language models will pick up these types of reviews. So if you're a distinct brand, make sure that that distinction is really lived by guests and that they're online talking about this in social media, because that's everything about your hotel is being consumed. So the distinction of a brand is really critical in standing out, because if you're just a bland hotel in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to get those bookings.
So let me ask you a question. You do that search, you type it into the AI, it gives you 3 results, and you book one of those 3. You're putting a lot of trust in that AI that it got those 3 results right, that it didn't miss one. That's why people love the Booking.com interface with 10,000 hotels, because they want to go through every single one and see if it's good or not. And we've got an audience question here. I think it was up, and it's on the bottom now from Gabor. It's important to train people how to consume AI answers. I'm going to segue that into a question about AI trust, both for guests, for staff, for your internal tech teams. We've talked so much about the opportunity in hyper-personalization and productivity. How do we put guardrails in place, and how do we build trust in these systems?
Like, not everything is correct. Like, I made a big boo-boo this week, and I can't talk about it because it was so stupid. But I really trusted it, and then I sent an email to someone, and it was just dumb what I did. Because I just had too much trust in AI, and you really do have to question it. You have to say, is this true? What is the source? But it's faster than Google. Like if I go on Google to find a specific answer, I have to go through 10 websites. Whereas with AI, it actually gives you the source, but you've got to click on it to see whether it makes sense, where it feeds from. So teach people saying, don't just blindly trust it, question it, but it will be faster than trying to find an answer through Google.
It's going to take time. Go ahead, Val.
I was just going to say, I think not only do you have to have trust, but you have to think about how you're sharing your data. So as a company or as a hotel, you need to think about this data that you have and that you're using and you're using AI for. You have to be very protective of it, because you can easily make mistakes. And I mean, I think we've all heard the horror stories where somebody's released all their information out and you're like, well, that wasn't what I wanted to do. So you need to make sure you have those safeguards in place and are thinking about that before you start using AI.
I like this audience question. Should technology shape the way we do operations, or should operations shape the development of technology? This goes back to that conversation we were having about, well, what do you really want to achieve? I mean, I'll start with you. We'll go down the panel. I want your thoughts on this.
And I think I'm going to cover on something that Matt said, like not only from a property standpoint, but when we go to release something, like everybody thinks technology is going to solve all the problems. And it's like, how often, like historically I've looked at, sometimes we'll release technology, we'll use the same system and we're like, oh, we're going to replace it with, I'll say Salesforce. We had Microsoft, and it's like, it's not the technology that's the problem. It's that you haven't thought through what your outcome is, and what the processes need to be. Technology is never going to solve that if you don't figure that out. So I think it's important to think of it from that standpoint.
I think every hotel needs to write down their vision document. What does our brand stand for? What's the experience I want to drive? And that's the starting point. It can't be, let's just do what everyone else is doing and then we'll make it better. You need to, the first principle is really critical. Stepping away from the business. If we had a blank slate, what would this experience be like? Write it down and then start building. So 100% start with operations and then
so we've got this idea. We're starting with operations. We're really thinking through the system. We're putting in world-class modern tech stacks. We're not siloing our data. We're getting our data right. We're bringing it together. We're feeding into these great tools. We're using that to drive productivity in the back end. We're able to move fast, adopt AI. I'm trying to summarize as we come to a close of this. So this is all good stuff. I want to ask you, and this is sort of a question, I also had this question myself, so it's a good audience question. Tips, golden tips. That's where I want to end this conversation a little bit about what are your tips you have for, we've got this ideal journey of what we want to achieve. We're going to think through it. We're going to move fast. What do you think for your tips, Valerie?
Golden tips. I guess it would be to think about making sure that when you're leveraging technology, you're not creating more friction points with the guest. Think about where those wow factors are, where it's really going to enable that, and making sure that you've thought that through.
I would say lead from the front. Go stand behind the reception desk. Go, lead from the front, be there. And I too rarely see GMs in the restaurants serving me. I see them walking around, looking, but just clear the table once every so often and say, was everything okay? Stand behind the reception desk and just use the system and see if you can leverage AI. Because if they're all watching, and I spend a day in support, I'm going back to support in a month's time for a day, and I'm going to close tickets, I'm going to talk to customers, and it's hard for me because I can't add value, but they add value to my understanding of their operation. And I would challenge every GM in this room to go and spend a day in operations, because it's really difficult. We talk beautifully about AI. You try and do it.
I would love to be the customer who gets you on their support call.
We started having always somebody from operation, usually one of our GMs, to join our tech meetings, because whenever we're developing a product, we saw very often we develop the products without having a GM or somebody from operations. So actually getting the buy-in from operation and getting them to actually feedback at the beginning of the cycle, not at the end when the product is ready to ship. But that one is one of the key things to really buy.
Too many of the operational things that we do were built over time because of limitations of technology. So be willing to challenge things that made you successful in the past. We talked about it, but rethink without any limitations, how do you want this to work? What is the outcome that you're trying to achieve? And then challenge your technology partners to help you bring that to life, because the limitations that existed 10, 15, 20 years ago in technology have evaporated. And so now you can truly rethink and reset, but you've got to be brave to completely challenge the things that made you successful prior.
Awesome. I love this panel. Great words of advice. Nice note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for being here. And thank you to our amazing panelists.